Hey everybody, Danny O here, Team Rogue Tech, here with Ariel today. We're going to be piloting Bant Wolf Run Control versus Esper Control for a deck tech request we got earlier. It is a little late. We expected to have this up like a week ago. But we're going to speed this up because it's kind of a long game. We'll talk through the key points. When it's over, we'll knock out the aftermath, what we learned, and what tips we can provide as you pilot either one of these decks. So I think to start off, who goes first? You won the roll? I always lose the dice roll. So you go first. I think you mulligan to 6.
Yeah, I mulligan to 6. Just saw one land hand. Not going to go anywhere, especially in a control deck. Keeping Augur of Bolas, Syncopate, has Supreme Verdict, and one of my spot removal spells.
I had a pretty good opening hand. I had 3 land with Jace, Sphinx's Rev, Syncopate, and a Farseek. But all my lands were slow lands, so that was pretty bad. So
this is probably one of the most important plays.
Yeah,
right
this kind of like decided the match. I tried a Farseek. He knows I have tap lands, and I don't know. Even if I didn't, countering that Farseek is kind of a big slap in the face. He knows Bant Control needs to ramp and set up a little bit better, and
their colors are extremely important. If you see right now, he's got double Sunpetal and it looks like a Hinterland. So that's only one source of blue, which is not enough to win the counter battles.
No. And even off this Azorius Charm, I draw 2 cards, still don't hit a land, which is really bad. And I know I'm going to have time to hit my land drops in this matchup, but it's just kind of frustrating to just sit there and let him establish, get his hand sculpted, and have his counters ready.
Yeah, and about that, you see me digging really fast right off the start. Trying to establish, because my win condition being milled takes a lot longer than Bant Wolf Run's win condition, so I need to establish as soon as possible, because if he establishes before me, I am in trouble. Yeah,
and he's already started milling me here, as you can see, so it's kind of a uphill battle from here.
And Augur's gotten in. Looks like that was the hit down to 15 life. What I'm doing there, I know that I'm probably not going to win with life, but at least it makes him think about it.
Right.
So he might play a verdict that is mostly irrelevant and just forces him to play differently than he usually would.
Yeah, and I did have verdict in my hand. I think I had 2 at one point through this game, but at no point did I really care about the Augur. I knew the mill was going to be way faster. And that's right. I play this Jace here because I think I have another Farseek in hand that I want to resolve, and I'm just trying to bait out some counter spells from his hand because I know he's established his hand so much that I want to kind of get out the counter spells early so I can resolve what I need to later, like this Farseek.
Yeah, and you'll see me draw first spell. I didn't have the counter right there, so I'm searching for a possible counter, not necessarily with the intent of countering Farseek, but at least knowing if I have the option to.
Yeah, and it resolves. I grab a Steam Vents, I get my red and an extra source of blue. So I finally have a shock land, so at least my blue slow lands come into play on top from here. So no Sunpetal is still coming into play tap.
And I've got double Drown Yard down, so I'm hitting that mill, setting it up, getting him pretty deep into the deck right off the start.
And honestly, I was so frustrated when he countered that Farseek turn 3 that I would scoop right there. That just throws me off so bad. It's just so frustrating as a Bant Control player to know I don't have many lands and I'm probably going to miss land drops, and to have that counter, it just really is not good.
Well, that's Dennis in the background spectating for the first portion of this match. You'll probably see him in some of our other videos as time goes on.
And I think I was thinking about playing a Supreme Verdict there just to get rid of the Augur, but then I decided that it just was not important. And Tamiyo resolves, I believe?
Yeah, Tamiyo resolves. It's not something I want to let stick, but I do have double Drown Yard, so it's not a game-ending scenario, but
it's just going to slow him down.
It's definitely things that I don't want to see across the board. Especially because main board I only have the single Planar Cleansing and Detention Sphere to attempt to answer that.
And I actually expected you to have 2 Planar Cleansing main, because I think that's what Cody does.
Yeah.
And in our other... another one of our team members, Cody, which we'll probably get him on here at some point, he's also piloting Esper Control right now. He's running 2 Planar Cleansings main, so I'm used to playing around 2. But, I mean, you also have Snapcaster, too, so...
So this is where a bit of a game starts. I'm going to tap your Drown Yard, and then I'm going to respawn by milling 3, and then you're just going to keep cycling Drown Yards, which one's frost tapped.
Yeah, and the land that he's got up there untapped is the second Drown Yard. He's just going to leave that tapped just for
Just as a player shortcut.
Yeah, just to make it a little bit easier.
So my attacks are heading towards Tamiyo during this time to try to keep Tamiyo off the emblem.
Yeah, and for some reason, I decided that Azorius Charm was the best play. And in fact, I would probably rather just let Tamiyo take the hit and draw a card at that point, because I think I was still pretty hurting on land and just really needed to develop my hand.
Yeah,
and as soon as I Azorius Charmed this guy, I was like, that's probably not a good idea, because you're just going to get another use out of him. So.
And you're still looking for a win condition, especially since I just hit one of the Serenities off the top on that last mill.
At least one Angel, yeah.
I think we're somewhere in here we hit the second Serenity.
Yeah. Tap down your mill in response. Oh, there's an Assemble the Legion. That's one of my outs, and I only have 2 Assemble. I think you thought I only had 1.
No, I thought you had 2. I just thought I hit both.
Oh, yeah. So there was 1. The other one is still in there, but at this point, my deck is already pretty thin, and even if I could resolve an Assemble the Legion, it's not really going to be that fast.
So
especially with Planar Cleansing.
Through a majority of this first portion of the match, I'm looking at Supreme Verdicts and Spot Removal being Devour Flesh and Ultimate Price. And at one point I actually end up pulling full playset of Supreme Verdict.
Okay, I think you'll see a little bit of a jump there. Just a little technical difficulty with the video. Might happen again. Just being a little bit bad, and for future videos we'll probably have it a little bit better, so I apologize for the ghetto-ness of the videos right now. So to pick up, I charmed the Augur. It's back. And that was a whiff. That was the one.
Yep, I hit Snapcaster, land, Elixir of Immortality. The reason I paused to look at it is I couldn't decide if I wanted Elixir sitting at the bottom of the deck or maybe a little bit deeper in, because I really didn't know how long this game was going to go. I haven't seen a Sphinx's Revelation yet, but when I do, they tend to take a huge chunk out of my deck. That's why I mainboard this one of Elixir of Immortality, so that I can keep shuffling it over and over again in case I do get to that point where I have no library, because this deck's designed to go long, and if I can't even survive that, then that's quite a problem. So you see there that I hit double Serenity. If I remember his list correctly, that is 2 Serenity and 1 Assemble.
Actually, I think at this point you got all 3 Angels, because you hit 2 Angels on 1 mill, and I run 3, and you hit 1 earlier, so I think all my Angels are gone.
So your last win condition is a single Assemble and Kessiging little
Snapcasters.
Yeah.
I have a couple, like 1 or 2 snaps left, and I think that's about it.
So seeing all of those win conditions hit the yard is really comfortable for me, even though I do have all 4 Supreme Verdicts in hand at this point.
Plus, like Devour Flesh, Ultimate Price, you still have a lot of spot removal. My Angels were definitely not going to get there realistically.
Yeah, but the issue is if they do enter, then they start shuffling each other.
Yeah, that would be really nice.
Picking up others.
So at least get my snaps back, get that back, but...
So there's a Revelation off the top, which I'm kind of on the fence of whether I want my opponent playing a Revelation or not game 1, because it does thin their deck, and they often aren't going to have the answers that are even relevant to this matchup.
Which is why I think you let me rev for 4 earlier. I don't know if you had a counterspell, but I did resolve a rev for 4. And every time I do against you, I'm just like, yeah, I'm just helping them out. But
yep. Getting deeper in the middle. Looks like you're thinking about.
But I did find a Kessig Wolf Run, so it'd be really nice to like draw some cards, get a snap or 2, and maybe I was trying to get that other Assemble the Legion. I need to get a guy on the board. I need to start Wolf Running some things in.
So right here you see some chatter about Jace, wondering if there's even anything worth getting with his ultimate, because he's rolling them up so the Augur can't keep ticking off his Planeswalkers.
Right.
But I think we determined that there wasn't anything in either of our decks that was going to help tremendously, because it's all counterspells and removal, and even though you can cast the card indefinitely, it's still not something that's really going to make a difference when you're looking at, lands, counterspells, a couple of draw card spells.
And I think I use the Jace a little bit later, because I know, like, the stuff goes on the bottom of the library, so it's not going to hurt me with speed with a Joniard, but for the most part, yeah, I'm just rolling them up to keep my Tamiyo rolling up, because I want to get to that emblem, and I do run a one of Aurelia's Fury, so that's a really good win condition with Tamiyo's emblem, but I don't know if I had it. I think you might have milled it away already at this point.
No.
I don't think I've seen it yet.
Yeah. I don't think you've played it yet. At this point, he has 12 cards in his library. We're hitting the final stretch as far as I'm concerned, so I'm keeping close track of how many cards are in his library. And honestly kind of hoping he does something to accelerate into a better answer, because that means less cards in his library. I wish I had the counterspell to back this up, but I didn't.
And I definitely dissipated this.
Yeah, so it's a planar cleansing, trying to get rid of those walkers before they start dropping crazy effects, and it just dies to a Dissipate. But the bright side here is that Dissipate is not being activated during a Tamiyo emblem, meaning I don't have to worry about that Dissipate again.
Which is really frustrating as well, because as I'm working towards a Tamiyo emblem, I really want to keep those cards in my hands to be able to use them over and over again. But, I mean, you might be pressuring some stuff out of my hand, too.
So here's a difficult decision that I had to make.
It was in the yard.
He snaps an Aurelia's Fury and shoots me, but the difficult decision I have to make is, do I want to kill the Snapcaster, or do I want to mill him 3 cards? And I decided the Snapcaster was pretty important because he has Kessig in play.
Yeah, I was really trying to race. I wanted that Aurelia's Fury to hit you for 3. I think you were at like 17 when I hit you for 3, so I think you went down to like 14. And I had a lot of land and a representing Snapcaster and a Wolf Run, so I was like, if I could get him through, you know, it'd only take 2 turns to knock him out, and I had the time.
And it's not like I'd be able to keep a blocker.
Yeah, but that Devour Flesh just kind of shut off that plan altogether because I did not have another snap. I think there was one more. There might be one more, but it's still in the deck.
Yeah. After milling the Serenities, I was actually fairly thankful for having otherwise useless spot removal because it works really well against Snapcaster.
And that Aurelia's Fury is something I'd rather have in hand first and then snap back, because it definitely gives me priority on like your counter spells and stuff. Like I can Fury you for 1 and then Wolf Run my guy, which is really, really handy. So I did not get the opportunity to do that, unfortunately, this game. And it actually kind of gets me thinking about putting a second Aurelia's Fury in the sideboard for control-heavy matches like this.
Well, when I played my 5-color, which is a fairly close build to what you're playing now, I definitely enjoyed the double Fury. But I also had Borderland Ranger, Snapcaster, Farseek, just... I had a little bit more to ensure that I was always hitting my land drops, because what I did figure out about Fury is you have to hit your land drops, and you have to have more uses out of it than just once, otherwise it's not worth the slot. So
I just picked up a Snapcaster off the Jace's roll down, which is literally, aside from the other Assemble the Legion that's still in the deck, which is I think like maybe 9, 10 cards right now. Like
9 cards. Yeah.
It's like...
Yep, 9 cards.
I think that's literally, aside from the Assemble the Legion, which at this point would not get there in time, Snapcaster is my last threat.
Well, Assemble could have gotten pretty close just with the Kessig, but...
If I maybe played it this turn before I passed here, but obviously I didn't have it. So I think I get 2 turns at this point with 1 Drown Yard working.
So around this time, I'm thinking Tamiyo's able to do the ultimate. Around this time, I'm thinking that could be problematic, getting him his answers faster. But it doesn't necessarily stop the mill, but it definitely gives him a better chance of finding a win condition during the mill. Yeah,
but it still is taking cards off my library that I can't control. So we both agreed, like, I didn't think about getting her emblem because it stops Drown Yard. I think ultimately, at the end of the day, your Drown Yard still would have technically milled me out. And if I got my emblem, you would have been able to mill me 6 cards at a time.
Yeah, you would
at least for a turn.
You needed an emblem, probably with that Fury or some other win condition.
So at this point, it's just game over. Like I play Snap, you know, obviously trying to get into the Wolf Run, but I think you were at 17 still here.
Yep, and here comes the...
And I don't have enough to Wolf Run all out, and I know he's got spot removal, so I try to leave a little bit of mana up. But even if I leave mana up, like I have a Syncopate, he's got all his mana untapped. So my Syncopate's not going to do anything, and it's pretty much just it. Like at this point, my Snap's just not going to get there. Because I think you have Ultimate Price in hand?
Yep, you can see it right there. It's the top card. Probably the one I'm thinking about.
Getting it ready to go.
It's sitting behind it is 4 Supreme Verdicts that I'm never going to use.
So I swing in with Snap. He says okay.
I wasn't concerned about 2 damage.
No.
But I did want to see him tap out.
I wanted to put him on a 2-turn clock here, and if I tapped out for 6 on the Wolf Run and then 2 more off the snap would be 8. That would let me tap out a Wolf Run next turn for lethal, but because he's got an answer here, that's it. That's game over.
And I'm following it up with an Azorius Charm because I know I can mill it off the top.
Yeah, and I have Azorius Charm in hand too, which I was actually thinking about doing to my snap, but I mean, you just mill it away anyway, so I lose my threat either way. And I'm realizing at this point that like Wolf Running for 6 was probably not the best idea, but anything less than that probably would not be a 2-turn clock, and I'd probably just lose. So we can probably just skip ahead to the next game.
Yeah. Well, we can talk about the sideboards in the meantime.
Yeah, so we'll pause it here. Talk about the sideboard. I think yours is a little bit lighter, so I guess you can talk about it first.
Yeah, my sideboard was fairly easy to come up with. We've played this matchup only once before,
Yeah.
and game 2 in the original matchup, I did not bring in Geist of St. Traft. I did not feel that going aggro was going to work very well because I know he's got more mid-range than I do. And just things that are going to eat Traft very, very easily. However, this time around, I decided to go ahead and take life as an option and take that a little bit more seriously because the Tamiyo really scared me, and I know that he's got more than one, right?
2, yeah.
And I didn't really want to run that risk of Tamiyo maybe ending the game on me, so I decided to bring in Obsidat, 4 Traft, an extra Planar Cleansing, an extra Syncopate, an extra Dissipate, and what is my last card that I brought in?
Did you say the Planar Cleansing?
Yes.
You got that?
I will check. I think I end up showing it to the screen. Elixir of Immortality. I bring in 1 more Elixir of Immortality. Just for some longevity. It is amazing with counter spells because you just keep cycling that Dissipate over and over again until they are out of threats. It is a fairly far-fetched long game idea, but when you're playing with Sphinx's Revelation, things like that can happen. So coming out is my 5 spot removal spells that, yes, they were effective last game, but they weren't as effective as what I'm about to bring in, and the Azorius Charm, because the primary use of Azorius Charm is really going to be stopping his threats and maybe drawing some extra cards, but he's going to give me time. I don't need to draw those cards immediately. I'm going to have enough time to get some establishment going, and he's going to Kessig pump little dudes if they make it past my counter spells, and only if they make it that far, which having the full double set in is going to be able to counter that pretty well.
For my sideboard, it was pretty much, I think it was 14 cards. I think I cited, and I have a lot of hate for Esper Control just because it is such a tough matchup. I have a lot of cards for it. I have 3 Centaur Healers and 3 Restoration Angels in the sideboard that I brought in just because I wanted to be a little bit more threat present on the board. Like, I just wanted to have more guys early to establish, and I anticipated him citing in Geist of St. Traft, so I wanted to have a little bit of pressure against that. So I put those in, and then I also have a couple Dispels. I cited an Elixir of Immortality along with a Psychic Spiral. I always get that mixed up with Psychic Strike, but it's Psychic Spiral. I thought about boarding in the Ray of Revelation, but I didn't see any enchantments, and I couldn't think of any enchantments that he would put in against me. So I left that in the board, and that was the one card I didn't put in. And then the rest were... What else did I have? Oh, I had a couple Purify the Graves, because Snapcasters can be a little bit annoying with the counter spells and all that. One of Bramblecrush to pick off the Nephalia Drownyards as well as a Withcbane Orb. So that was the board. And then coming out, I took out my 4 Supreme Verdicts. I took out Sphinx's Revs because the games go long enough that I don't need a whole lot of time to do it. And it's probably just going to get countered, or it's just helping him mill me out. I also took out... What did I take out? So it was red. I think I took out the Jaces. That's right. I took out the 3 Architect of Thought because, again, it's not really something I cared to do against him. It was just going to draw me more cards, and I knew I had a little bit of time to get there. And then I also took out 1 Azorius Charm, and I think that was it. Oh, I took out the Angels of Serenity just because they're 2 mana intensive. He's got enough spot removal. He's got Wrath. It's is probably not really going to get there. So let's just get to this game really quick.
So the interesting thing about our boards when we're going against each other is that he takes out his Wrath, I don't. The main reason is because his win condition is creature-based. He's going to need a creature in play, and I know that my little spot removals aren't necessarily going to get there, but a Supreme Verdict that's uncounterable will definitely keep the board clear enough. And I'm also going to be putting him on a faster clock this time around. Worst case scenario, the double elixirs just keep me going into late game, but best case scenario, I'm putting him on a fast clock after wrathing his whatever he happens to put in play.
For sure. This is a very difficult matchup, and because Esper Drownyard, if played correctly and with the right build, it's pretty much just a match loss for me. I can't really handle it. It's probably not worth putting so many cards in the sideboard for it. I'd rather just focus my sideboard on other matchups that I have a better win percentage at. So that'll probably definitely take some changes. And then for my main board, might actually take a little bit of changes. For F&M, we have a lot of aggro variants, so I'm not actually going to be playing like so strict controls. I'll just get blown out by red deck variants, werewolves even, things like that. But Blitz, it's not really a thing at our local ABU, but it's still a thing.
It's something to keep in mind because it's a cheap deck to build and it can come out of nowhere real fast.
And if you playtest against Blitz, honestly, in my opinion, if you can playtest against Blitz and handle it okay, I think you can handle any aggro variant after that. Because I think Blitz is literally the fastest thing in the format for aggro. I would take red deck over Naya Blitz any day.
I think that's important to note in a control deck, though. When you're doing an aggro or mid-range deck and you're testing against Blitz, you got to think about the aggro decks that have a lot more spot removal and a lot more interaction. I was playing Werewolf Blitz a while back, and it did really good in most matchups, especially against Blitz, just because my dudes are bigger. However, the matchups where they had tons and tons of spot removal, such as Searing Spear, Dreadbore, Mizium Mortars, and the list goes on, those matchups were a little bit more difficult, and that's something to definitely keep in mind. So obviously Danny's going to be going first here. Think you're going to go a little further than this? Or is this? Yep.
All right. I think I made a mistake in sideboarding, so I wanted to do an extra sideboard real quick. Oh yeah, so he picked up Blind Obedience and felt it was necessary to show the camera.
So my opening hand was 5 land, Planar Cleansing, and Supreme Verdict. But I had an Ophelia Drownyard among those land. So I was showing a win condition. There was no reason to really mulligan. It's not like I'm going to lose to that hand. But then I top deck Blind Obedience, which is probably the best win condition in this matchup.
I definitely lost to Blind Obedience before in another Bant Control matchup. Not even Esper. I was playing against Bant Control, and I think he might have Blind Obedience. I don't know if they're main board. I don't recall, but it's definitely a great card because like the games go so long and you just cast spell after spell all of the time, just extorting everything. It just really adds up. So.
And I just love that Think Twice has a shock strapped to it when Blind Obedience is in play. It's not like the extra mana is something you're really concerned about when you're doing everything end of turn anyways.
Very, very annoying threat. I definitely, if you're playing a control deck and you are going against a tough control matchup, Blind Obedience is probably something really, really relevant to pull in, even if you don't have black mana. So and there's an extort on a Think Twice.
And
I don't think this game lasts too long, so.
No, this game...
It goes fairly quick. I think I do actually get hurt on land here again,
yeah,
but I'm not sure.
You miss a land drop, but it's not terrible.
Don't
I think this is the one where you miss the land drop.
Yeah, I probably would have played it by now.
So
flashing back for the next start.
You notice that I have the Drownyard in play. I'm not using it. I'm using the extorts instead. So he considers...
Here I make a play mistake. I go to snap Syncopate his Think Twice because I know he's getting a little bit low on cards in his hand, maybe, but I, for some reason, didn't account for the fact that he had a mana up, so I just take it back. And
that might have been my fault because I think my hand was in front of it when you went to cast the Snapcaster.
Yeah, so I ended up taking it back and let his Think Twice resolve. So. And, of course, the extort.
So I think we're 4 extort in by this point.
Draw go, draw go. So now I just try and play a snap early just to have a threat, get some damage in, try and match the damage he's putting out with Blind Obedience and keep his life total from getting too far out of range. And he's willing to take it because he's still above 20, don't care.
So one of the things to think about when playing against Bant Control is definitely that your life total is important to them, because yes, they can do a lot of damage really fast, but they can't let you get to exorbitant amounts of life. It's too risky for them to try to bring you down from 40, 50, or 60.
Yeah. As you can see from like how game 1 went, where it was at the very end of my deck, I had a snap and I could put him on a 2-turn clock, but it was so like tight wire at that point. Everything needed to be so perfect to get that last damage in those 2 turns that I don't want to let his life get out of control to the point where I can't do that. I don't have that option to put him on a quick clock.
A little Hallowed Fountain seizure there.
You asked me what mana I had up, and I was just like, yeah, just the one.
Okay.
As if it was relevant.
The reason I was asking is because I have Obsidat in hand at this point, but I look at my mana and I realize that I do not have a second black source. So Obsidat will not be coming down at this point, unfortunately. I feel like that would have been a pretty fast clock, but...
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Tamiyo comes down. Again, opens the door for Obsidat.
And I was pretty confident that she would resolve at this point, too, because I Farseeked earlier and you tried to counter it and I dispelled it. So I knew you were out of another counterspell, so I was pretty confident it would hit. So I got it, tapped a Drown Yard, he hits his double black, and there. Oh no, you don't. Planar Cleansing. That's fine. With an Extort, right?
Yes.
Always.
Planar Cleansing with the Extort, but I've got the double black now, so I'm feeling a lot more comfortable. I just didn't want Tamiyo to get out of control.
For sure. And here you're tapped out. This is where I believe I Bramblecrush your Drown Yard.
We forgot to cleanse the obedience.
Huh. You did, huh?
We forgot to cleanse the obedience.
Okay, so play mistake on our part. And we both let that pass. Honestly, I don't think it would have mattered too much.
I think at this point...
by what plays out, so that's kind of funny. I can't believe neither of us noticed that. So, everybody makes mistakes. So he resolves Obsidat with an Extort, which, like I said, doesn't really matter.
So Obedience is such a passive card. You need to remember that it is indeed there. But at this point, I think we're both kind of feeling the game is nearing its end. Your life total is down 5 or lower. Oh no!
Well, no, I'm at like 10 at this. No, I'm at 12.
No, you should be at 10.
I think I'm at 12. I go up to 10.
Not 10.
Then you hit me for 5, and I go to 5. That's where it was here. I managed to land the Assembling Legion, so I was like, oh, I'm going to take 5 from GhostDaddy, but I'll get a blocker next turn. And I forget that he's actually tapped because of Blind Obedience, but in all actuality, the Blind Obedience would have been gone. It would have been untapped. But because of what he does here on this turn, which you'll see, I don't think it really matters. I think I'm at 5.
Yeah. So
if we don't count Extorts...
I still have an Obsidat swing the following
So I'm still at 5 here, technically, if we don't count this Extort on this thing twice. And I'm thinking about dispelling it, but in my mind, it didn't really matter because it wasn't going to exile it. He could just flash it back with an Extort anyway, so I was just like, fine, just take the card. I'm just kind of not much I can do. So he gets his card and he pulls something better to do than flashback with Think Twice.
So my original plan was to actually Sphinx's Revelation for 1 and put an Extort on it, but instead I draw Trap. So I decided to drop that. And
that's just pretty much, okay, fine. I mean, you pretty much had the game anyway, but... Yeah. So I get my token, I top deck Wolf Run, which was kind of funny, because like his life total was still way too high for it to matter. Yeah. Tabs it, I'm just like, fine, whatever. So I'm at 5, another Assemble, just because... even if I had my untapped dude, you untap. I lose 2 off Obsidat. I go to 3. You attack with GhostDaddy and Trapped. I can block GhostDaddy. I still take 6 and lose from Trapped. Yep. So pretty cut and dry game aside from the play mistake. Yeah, so that's it. The things we could take away from this, the last time I played against him at FNM, I definitely had the option of Tamiyo Emblem way earlier in Game 1, and I didn't do it because I thought it necessary to keep his Nephalia Drown Yard tapped, but we learned that if he mills me, I have the option of putting those cards in my hand. So he could actually be ramping me into the answers that I need making sure I hit my land drops to keep my counter spells nice and full. So that probably would have been something better to do. The game one that we had, Tamiyo was way too late for that to really matter at that point. So that's just something to keep in mind against Drownyard, that Tamiyo can tap it down, but it also, when you get that emblem, just go ahead and take the emblem if it matters. Keep those spells in your hand ready to use off your emblem, and then Drownyard is a little bit less effective.
And I think when playing against Bant Control or from the Esper Control, or Esper Control against any other control, stop them from getting stabilized. Because your win condition is so slow, you need to slow them down. You need to make sure that they're not moving faster than you are. If they're Farseeking, if they're dropping Centaur Healer, if they're dropping whatever their early game control is, you need to stop that stuff so that it can slow down. Because the later big game stuff, it's just going to come in too late. It's not going to be relevant by the time it actually comes around. And they're still going to continue to play around counterspells whether you have them or not. So it's just a good idea to keep that in mind. And the nice part about Esper is you never have to tap out. You can just sit there and watch your opponent sweat while you have a full grip of cards, whether they're relevant or not.
Yeah, it's never bad to make your opponent think more than you do. So obviously if you have blue mana up, they got to respect the blue. If they don't, you win anyway. But like, playing around it is obviously very frustrating, and it's harder for me as a Bant Control player, even though I think we both have pretty much the same amount of counterspells and the same amount of Snapcasters.
Well, you only have 6, right?
I have 3 Dissipate and 2 Syncopate.
I have 8 post board.
Plus, and I have 2 Dispel post board, so I go up to 7.
Yeah, so I've got 8 post board and 2 main board, and then 3 snaps for each of us.
Yep, and then 3 snaps.
Or, sorry, 6 main board.
So we're pretty even on the counterspell things, but I'm definitely playing around him way more because my threat's much more mana intensive. I want to do stuff on my main phase a lot more, whereas he just draw land go or draw land augur go, and that just leaves him with so much more mana up that makes it harder for me. So it's definitely a difficult matchup, and I really think Esper Control is a hard matchup for pretty much anything at this point.
And my win condition isn't counterable, which is probably the biggest difference between these two decks.
For sure. Having a land that can win the game for you is nice. Yeah. So.
And the two odd things about our decks is he's got Bramblecrush, which is super relevant against win conditions like this. And then I have Elixir of Immortality because I don't want to mill myself out. I also don't want to lose to early game aggro. Those are just 2 small additions that are very different from most builds that we see. And they work very well.
Yeah, for sure. I don't actually know if I prefer the Bramblecrush, though, but I definitely wouldn't take it out for a slime. Mm-hmm. I don't think acidic slime is better, just because it's more mana intensive and it's easier to counter. I don't know. I don't really run Restoration Angel, except for like sideboard.
The only benefit from slime you're going to get is the fact that you can Serenity it back, but that's if you're sticking Serenity, and unfortunately in the matchups that you need slime most,
I take Serenity out usually because it's too expensive against his counterspells. So I mean, I think I'm going to make some changes to my main board, not solely based on this matchup, just because aggro is way more of a thing at our local FNM than this is. My deck definitely looks more Bant mid-range than Control. In fact, at FNM I probably don't run counterspells at all. It's all Centaur Healer, Resto, Thragtusk. It's strictly Bant mid-range. But I really, really do enjoy having Assemble the Legion. I think it's really good in the meta right now. And if you're thinking about playing a control deck like Bant or anything that has red-white, give Assemble the Legion a try. Let us know how it does. I think it's a lot of fun and it works. Along with Aurelia's Fury is a super, super good card that I think is being really undervalued right now.
Yeah. So I think just to close out, we'll talk a little bit about Dragon Maze editions. Absolutely.
So for Dragon's Maze, I'm very excited for Voice of Resurgence. Of course, there's a lot of hype about that card, and it's not unwarranted. The card is good. In my deck particularly, being able to play a turn 2 Voice of Resurgence, even against the Esper Control, is just really, really good. Even if it dies and you get a 1/1 token, it's just a nice threat that just is like a mini Thragtusk. You know, it's just a nice threat that gets there and puts some pressure on the board that most of the time you have to have 2 answers for. Pillar of the Flame would be the best removal for it.
I think I would describe Voice of Resurgence as a doomed Thragtusk. It's pretty much just a baby Thragtusk, a bigger Doom Traveler. It's as awkward to play around as both of those cards at the same time.
And I've been playtesting with proxied Voice of Resurgence in the deck, and it's been doing really well. If you're playing Bant Control. I don't recommend it for aggro variants. I don't think it's really the right kind of thing if you're going for the aggro route. But for a mid-range control player, I definitely think it's where you want to be if you're playing Bant mid-range. Try and pick some up. They're expensive, so do your best. But I'm definitely getting forward for the deck, as well as trying out Turn and Burn. Yes. Really good spot removal. Not so much against Esper Control, of course, but really good answer to Thragtusk. Really good answer to Angel of Serenity and Boros Reckoner Blast Act combo. The fact that it removes their abilities is really nice, and it puts a flyer on the ground. So, like, even Jund matchups where they have Olivia or Fogwrath Aristocrat, super good card to let them attack with it, turn it, put it on the ground as a 0/1, block it with a Snapcaster. I also like the ability that you can Snapcaster the turn and burn. You can't fuse it, but I can snap the turn and turn one of their creatures and block with the Snapcaster, keep my snap and kill something that could potentially be a lot bigger.
And
so
all of the shenanigans with the maze runners, like Tajik being indestructible, things that are relatively difficult to answer, that turn is just going to be super relevant against, because you can block it with that Snapcaster or just kill it.
Pick up Turn and Burn. Trust me, it's going to be a good card. It's going to be relevant. And especially in a Bant Wolf Run control, because I'm splashing red, it's a perfect little addition. If I hit red early, I can, just shock something or, turn it, save some life. It's a great removal card, trust me. For Esper, I definitely think Far and Away is the best one. He'll probably talk about that, though. But those are the Dragon's Maze editions I'm looking at for my Bant control, just Voice of Resurgence and maybe Turn and Burn. It might make the cut, I'm not sure. I really like it, but it's from playtesting, it's been slightly difficult to get in. I'd have to make some tweaks.
I think the meta will show that Turn and Burn is a little bit more relevant. I definitely build a little bit differently than normal. The cards that I'm actually looking at most as far as Esper Control goes, though I don't plan on playing it a whole lot, is Council of the Absolute. Running that to make my Sphinx's Revelations cost less, keep opponents from actually casting their Sphinx's Revelations. Since I do run the Elixir, I'm not going to be super concerned about if Council dies, because I can bring it back later if it's really that important or if the game's going that long. But just that momentary Nevermore / Heartless Summoning for all of my non-creature spells is pretty awesome. I can drop it on a Syncopate, I can drop it on primarily Revelation, but it can be relevant on other spells as well.
Like if you're not playing against Control, there's not too much point to name Sphinx's Rev. It's
just to get 2 extra life.
It's like it's a 2/4 body that could be good against aggro or mid range, and you could name something just to ramp yourself a bit.
But I think the biggest consideration as far as the Esper Control goes is the existence of Notion Thief. I don't think it's a good idea for decks to main deck, which means I'm not going to have to be super concerned about it. However, Sideboard, I can expect to see some of them come in because it has received a lot of hype. I don't think it's really due. Notion Thief, a 3/1 is not good for, 4 mana?
It's 4 mana, 3/1 flash. And my biggest beef about it is if you're playing Esper Control and you side in Notion Thief against my Sphinx's Revs, I'm already playing around counterspells. If you have untapped mana, I'm already playing around you responding to me and doing Sphinx's Rev and things like that. So I don't think Notion Thief is going to be as effective in that sense.
That's already a more expensive card than I want. And to be honest, I think it could be hilarious, like I said earlier about my opponent playing Sphinx's Revelation. It could be hilarious to watch someone drop a Notion Thief, draw all the cards that I would have drawn off the Sphinx's Revelation, and then lose to mill in the following turn.
So you're just ramping them. You can give them threats, especially you're just like Turbo Fog at that point, right? You just ramp them into it and then just answer the little things.
Give me the Blue Sun Zenith I wish I had.
Pretty much. So I guess that wraps it up. I hope you enjoy. We'll have some more videos up soon, hopefully. Stick around. Don't leave. Trust in us. We'll get some more videos up, I promise. So thank you for watching. See you next time.
Okay, let's go. We can do cards here.
Let me change real quick. You don't want to leave this stuff with me?
Yeah, I don't need it. What time do you think you can be there? What? No. Oh. Yeah. Okay.
I need to get her and Carson too. what you gotta do, and then when I get back, I'll upload the video.
Yep.
So you think the commentary was good?
Yeah.
Knocked out what we needed to?
I think that's a good idea.
I actually almost forgot about talking about Dragon's Maze stuff. I'm glad you mentioned that. I was like, oh yeah, I'm so excited! I honestly think like Notion Thief will be good in your deck post board if you just like wait till late game and just play him on your main phase.
If I was going to go that far, I would honestly use Otherworld Atlas as well. I would totally run Otherworld as like an alternate mill. I could mill so much faster if I'm going Otherworld, and then I can drop Notion Thief when I need the cards. Is it a main or is it a must?
What is Notion Thief?
Notion Thief? I'll check it.
That's a good question. I'm pretty sure it's a must. Yeah, it's a must because it replaces the instance of them drawing a card with you drawing a card. So it's not a me. It is literally replacing that instance of it.